Today we're going to learn about Security Hub or whatever version of Security Hub is running. Okay, this is the weirdest lab I built yet. Why? Because I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to last or what things will look like when you finally log in. Sure, I try to keep these things updated, but I'm just one person and sometimes things change so darn quickly in the cloud. Here's the TLDR. Security Hub is Amazon's built-in security center that includes cloud security posture management capabilities. But AWS recently split out the non-CSPM parts, named all of those Security Hub, added some features, then renamed the old Security Hub CSPM, and has said more changes are coming since the new version's only in public preview and you only live once. So let's talk about the curious case of two Security Hubs. Security Hub CSPM is what you're probably thinking of when somebody says Security Hub if you've laid your hands on AWS before this change. It runs all of those security standards checks and compliance frameworks and best practices assessments to find your misconfigurations. This is the part that competes with tools like Prowler that we covered in the last lab. Security Hub CSPM generates findings about misconfigurations, compliance violations, and security gaps. Now, the new Security Hub, which is still in public preview as I record this, and it'll probably go general availability soon, is actually a meta layer that sits on top. Think of it as a security aggregator and correlation engine. So it takes the findings from Security Hub CSPM, which remember, that's what we used to call all of Security Hub, but it also pulls in alerts and findings from GuardDuty, Inspector, Macie, and other security services. Then it correlates all that data, reduces noise, helps you prioritize what matters, or at least that's in theory. Now, I'll let Amazon marketing do my speaking for me, so this is a direct quote. Security Hub is a unified cloud security solution that prioritizes your critical security issues and helps you respond at scale. Security Hub detects security issues by automatically correlating and enriching security signals from multiple sources, such as posture management, vulnerability management, and like Amazon Inspector, sensitive data, Amazon Macie, threat detection, Amazon GuardDuty, through intuitive visualizations. Security Hub, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Okay, here's how this works. Security Hub CSPM, which is what used to be just all of Security Hub, checks your environment and generates findings. Those findings feed into the new Security Hub. The new Security Hub correlates them with other security data like GuardDuty, Access Analyzer, and Inspector. And the result is you should get prioritized, deduplicated view of what needs attention. Now, I know you're asking yourself, or you should, didn't Security Hub always aggregate findings from other services? Well, it did, but it didn't do any of that fancy correlation. And as a result, Security Hub wasn't really competitive with other cloud service provider native tools like Defender for Cloud or the Google Security Command Center. Now, I mentioned costs a bit earlier, and Security Hub CSPM relies heavily on AWS config to do its job. Config is what actually tracks the state of your resources and detects changes. Some checks happen in real time when a resource change and others run on a schedule. Now, the problem is config is not cheap, and so we can't yet turn on all of Security Hub plus Security Hub CSPM and ignore our bill. So this is one thing that can really inflate your bill pretty quickly. And in our lab today, we're going to make sure we shut everything off when we're done. All right. So although I expect Security Hub to change significantly as it goes into general release and continues to evolve, for educational purposes, this new version does offer us more baseline CSPM or CNAPP capabilities we can use to expand our knowledge. A couple of these key features are inventory. And while Security Hub doesn't offer a full and complete cross-account inventory of everything in all your accounts, it does aggregate its inventory for the resources that are covered, big ones like EC2 instances and Lambda functions. So it gives you, the security professional, a view of more of what's running, and it can do that across accounts and across regions, which is pretty cool. The findings themselves, similar to our Prowler findings, these cover our CSPM results or the misconfigurations, such as OpenS3 buckets and not using IAM Instance Metadata Service version 2. But it also includes findings from other tools, such as any vulnerabilities detected by Inspector in your instances, Inspector is basically a vulnerability scanner. And it starts sounding a little bit more like CNAPP. And if you remember, CNAPP stands for Cloud Native Application Protection Platform, which is when we combine CSPM with other capabilities like vulnerability scanners. So that's pretty cool that we're actually able to aggregate those things from all those different places. Then it can help correlate these different sources. So I should ideally only need to look in one place to figure out what's going on. This ties in tightly to the inventory. So if I look at a resource, I can see the misconfigurations, the guard duty alerts, and any other findings without having to bounce around to 5 different tools. It also includes what we call exposure findings and an attack graph. And this is really common in a lot of the third-party tools these days, or even the first-party ones. Actually, I think Azure, I saw it over there first. These exposure findings are the higher priority issues, what Chris Ferris and I like to call the big gaping security holes, like is something public. So an exposure finding is it misconfigured, reachable, and or vulnerable. And then an attack graph is a visual way of showing how that might potentially be exploited. And look, an attack graph is just eye candy, but I mean, who doesn't love eye candy? And then lastly, there's some automation. And mostly in Security Hub, this is create a ticket somewhere else for somebody to fix this darn thing. Or you can take this and forward it to stupid complex event bridge Lambda-based auto remediations like that insane dude who runs that coleslaw newsletter. Yeah, so we've already been down that path. If you've done these labs in order around the auto remediations, it's not really included here. What they mean by automations is automatically handling findings, routing them, those kinds of things. Now, look, all of these capabilities and more are available in major third-party CSPM or CNAPP tools. And those are going to tend to have a lot more robust capabilities in terms of what they look for and their compliance frameworks and the security standards they support, report generation, filtering, organization of your findings. But it's nice to see AWS building more of this natively, and it does work really well for us to take our learning up to the next level and get hands-on just within AWS. And remember, my advice is to turn on CSPM, be it Security Hub or any of the third-party CSPM CNAPP tools on day one. The only reason this lab comes so late in this sequence is I wanted to make sure you understood the fundamental aspects of cloud security so you would know what you were looking at when you were turning on these tools. Now that you've done that, when you go in some place, very first thing, turn one of these on, even if it's Security Hub, until you can bring in a third-party tool. All right, with that, let's get in the lab. And all we're going to do today is turn on Security Hub, and we're going to explore it a little bit, see what kind of findings that it generates. Then I'm going to show you how to turn it off, because this is the kind of thing that can quickly increase your bill if you're not careful. Okay, now that we jump in the lab, I have to apologize for something. When we're working with things like Amazon, there's what we call two-way doors and one-way doors. A two-way door is a change you make you can back out of. And a one-way door is a change you make that you can't back out of. Now, as I prepare these labs, I'm usually really cautious to make sure I don't make any changes in my account or my organization that would make it look different than yours. I did that this time. My recording died, so I lost that section of the recording, and I'm going to have to walk you through it more by explaining what's going to happen. Now, it's super easy. It's like a couple of check boxes, but I do apologize for that, and we're not going to have the exact screenshots. This is still a service in preview. It's not been released at the time of the recording. Well, it is released. It's everywhere. It's in all of our accounts. But because of that, it also threw me for a little bit of a loop because I wasn't as familiar with this as most of the other services that I use as part of generating these labs. So with that, let's jump in, and we're going to go to the sign-in portal. The change we're going to make is pretty quick, and we're going to basically have to make an update to our delegated administration from our management account. Now, if you recall that we already have Security Hub up and running, and it's already centralizing for our entire organization. But that is Security Hub CSPM, and we didn't turn on any of the things that actually look for misconfigurations. We're just using it to aggregate our findings. Well, if we go into our administrator account, what we need to do, and this is from the management account, and then we need to go to Security Hub, which is the new one. So this is where we want to go ahead and start. So you're going to start in Security Hub, and this is where my environment's going to be different than yours. Now, right from this screen, great. We want to go ahead and use this. It is going to cost us some money. We are going to learn how to turn that off before we get too far with this lab. Now, when I click in, this is what is going to be different. this is going to look the same here, but you're going to see under Delegate Administrator that you need to make an update. So you actually have to go ahead and make a change. Now, my change has already been done, and that's in there because that was that one-way door. I don't remember what the old policy was. I didn't have a copy of it somewhere. It's very rare I make these mistakes, but they do happen. I think it's the first time in over a year of these labs. What you do want to do is an account enablement. And then if you need to, and you probably do, update your delegated administrator policy. And there's going to be a checkbox to click to validate that you are updating that policy. Once that's set, click configure. This has it all up and running. And that's all we need to do from this account. Unfortunately, the way the documentation wasn't totally clear, it turns out we do need to enable config for everything for Security Hub CSPM to get all the information it wants, whereas the regular Security Hub kind of has its back channel access to get some of what it needs already. I know, it's complicated. Well, to fix this, we're just going to deploy a CloudFormation stack set. And if you follow the blog post, this will be in order with the video. I'll see if I can insert this in the right spot. In terms of the instructions. That's why things might seem a little weird. All right, so go into your console, and we're going to go into our management account, which is the CloudSLA account. And then we're going to go to CloudFormation. And from CloudFormation, we'll go to Stack Sets. And within Stack Sets, we're going to create a stack set. And I've got my template already. I've built it for you. And we'll click next, and we're going to name this config. And yep, this is where our service link role is going to be created. That's what we want. We're going to click next, and it might create IAM resources, and click next. And we're going to deploy this to new stacks to our entire organization. And then being a stack set, we're going to pick our regions. We'll do Oregon. And we'll do North Virginia. And we'll do this 10 accounts at a time with a failure rate of 9 because those numbers have to be within one of each other. We'll run it in parallel. And actually, we'll do the regions in sequence. I think that was causing me some issues before. We'll click next. And we'll click submit. And at this point, I pause the screen and wait while it runs. Everything succeeded. We're going to configure the rest from our Delegate Administration account, which is our Security Audit account. Close that, and we'll go to Security Audit, which is the Delegate Administrator and now has the permissions it needs to make these changes. Fingers crossed. We'll go in with Administrator Access, and we're going to go to Security Hub and follow that same process to enable it. In this case, we don't have to worry about Delegate Administration because this is the Delegated Administrator account. And you'll see it doesn't even come in here. So we'll go ahead and we'll go enable Security Hub. And we're going to enable for organization. See, it didn't ask for any of that Delegate Administration stuff. These are the services it says we should turn on. We already know we have Guard Duty turned on everywhere. We did that in some earlier labs. We didn't turn on all of the features of it. We have it turned on. We're not going to use Inspector for this lab. We will do Inspector in a future lab. And we're same thing with Macy. We're not going to use in this lab. But we do want to configure AWS Security Hub CSPM, and we're going to get to that. That is actually turned on, but it's just not turned on the correct way for us to use it. No findings, no results here, but you can see, and yours may not have full coverage in terms of what it's showing here, but you'll notice it says 50% coverage. And let's see why. Because if I click on that, we have just not all of our foundation benchmarks are turned on because we didn't turn everything on. So let's see if we can go ahead and turn on the configurations. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do is turn on Security Hub for our entire organization. So to do this, let's go with, let's go back to configurations. The first thing we want to do is go into Settings General, and we want to aggregate across all of our regions. So Security Hub is turned on. This is where we'll actually come back to turn it off later. But let's go ahead and configure. And we want to aggregate everything into this region, US West 2. And we only have one other region running, so we'll select US East 1. You might get errors if you do otherwise because of our policy that has all the others locked down. So now everything is coming back into US West 2. Now we go to configurations and we're going to create our policy. And the policy name is, let's just call it default. And this is going to enable Security Hub in all regions. It's going to auto-enable new regions. I'm not going to mess with any of these settings. So value setting operators, I don't know, for all of those, and all regions and all accounts. All we're doing is we're saying, make sure Security Hub will run in all of the new regions. And that looks good. And we'll hit create. And that policy was created and is now being deployed. Next thing we need to do, and it attached, you can see that that's the root of my entire organization. So if we look at the organization, we can actually see it, and you can see which policies are deployed. Right now, it hasn't fully updated everything yet. Let's try a refresh. I don't know how long this part takes, to be honest. And the default policy is applied at the root. That means that all the others have it and are inheriting that. Now, the next thing we need to do is if we go into the posture management, we don't have any of our CSPM standards set. So this is just kind of some built-in default pieces that are in there. We need to go ahead and actually want to enable deeper inspections, which is going to be one of those security standards. So this doesn't allow you to configure it here. And you'll notice if I go into configurations here, even if I go to create a new policy, I can't. It doesn't give me the option to go ahead and do that. So let's manage our integrations. And these are third-party integrations. And let's look at our configured integrations. We're not using any of those. Automations, we won't use that. Instead, we have to configure our detection engine. That is Security Hub CSPM, which we have been using already. And if we go into our Security Hub CSPM, you'll notice that we don't have any of these standards set up. So it is pulling some data for us, but we're not really going to get all of the results we want unless we turn it on and add in additional standards. Now, if I click this, I think it fails. Yep, this would fail because it actually is just trying to run in this account. It's not using its delegated admin power. This is where we go into configuration. And we go into configuration, and this is new. This was not there when I originally set this up. If you go to policies, and then we have this existing policy, we can go ahead and use this policy. So click on that button, and you'll notice that security standards 0 of 10 are enabled. And we'll go ahead and edit that. And we want to enable the AWS Foundation best practices. And in this case, we're going to enable all of the controls, and we're not going to do any customization. So those are the three keys here. Enable Security Hub CSPM, foundational security best practices, enable all controls, and we have to turn on config recording, but it's going to, I believe, turn some of that on for us because of how the new Security Hub works. And we want it to run in all of our accounts, and we're going to leave the name. We'll click Next. This is going to override any configurations, and we're going to save that policy and apply. This is now going to start the process of, if I go into my summary here and my findings, it's going to take time, but it will fill in as it starts basically looking for more findings across the accounts. We have our, let's see, it might take a second before the foundation best practices actually shows as being enabled here. And I'm going to go ahead and pause and give this a minute to roll out. It's still not showing here, and I'm impatient, so I'm going to go back to the main Security Hub. Let's see what we get. Like I said, we're learning a little bit as we go. This is messy from where this thing originated from. And if I hit my summary, nothing showing up as terms of active threats and active exposures yet. Now posture management dropped us to 6%. So let's take a look at why that is. And you'll see that foundation best practices is what gives us our 6% coverage. Let's click on that. And we have that coverage finding. So it's giving us a warning. And you can see this is an older warning because it was from 5 hours ago. And this is a coverage finding. So it was lacking coverage because we didn't have Security Hub CSPM turned on. Now that finding is apparently passing because we do have that one turned on. So go back to the summary and let me actually go into posture management. And you can see some early results here. These look to me like they're all from this account. So we do need to wait for that data to filter through. Now, I did want to check to make sure it was running, and we can see here that the service role for Security Hub v2 was created pretty quickly. So this is what happens behind the scenes with our delegated administration. And let's go ahead and check in one of our workload accounts and make sure that that's deployed there as well. So we'll go in with administrator access, and then we're going to go to IAM. And I'm going to be looking for that particular role. And there it is, Security Hub. So I now know for sure Security Hub v2 is running in these accounts. I'm going to look for one little thing, which I don't think I'll see, but let's see if it happens here, is to go into config, which we did not turn on yet. Oh, yeah, so it's behind the scenes. I believe config is running a service linked recorder, which is not something that's going to deploy or be visible in the console. We're going to go back to our security audit account. And I'm going to go back into Security Hub itself. And then I'm going to just talk about what these core capabilities are. So what do these things mean? Threats and exposures and security coverage. And you can see my security coverage is filling in a little bit. Threat analytics, it's filling in a little bit. Threats are, it's an event with basically immediate threats. So something typically, most of what we're going to see here, because of how we have things configured, is going to be coming out of guard duty. That's the detection engine that we have turned on that will feed threats. There are others, but that's the one that we're using right now. Exposures is correlating multiple things, like if I have an EC2 instance with an open security group, what's my exposure? We don't have any yet because we haven't fed in any information from our environment that would show an exposure. And then these tabs just allow us to dig into the threats. You can see we don't have anything here. The exposures, nothing there. No vulnerabilities yet because we're not using Inspector, which is what would give us those vulnerabilities. Sensitive data ties into Macy. Posture management, though, is the CSPM, and that's what we have currently turned on in our environment. And you can see that right now we have multiple accounts, and I can actually dig down into like the findings from single accounts. Oh, that's for any account. But let's take that one off. But if I click on the account ID, only 81 of those are in the current account as opposed to other accounts. And I can click on any of these. Now, here's a key lesson for CSPM. So, for example, SSM documents should block public sharing settings and have that as a default. Well, we're not using those right now. You notice this is 4 hours old. This is going to fill in more over time. AWS config should be enabled to use the service link wall for resource recording. Well, we have limited use, and again, that's 3 hours old. We're already using it, but let me find one here I don't like. Here we go. Guarded EKS log audit monitoring should be enabled. We're not using EKS, so we shouldn't turn this on, or Lambda protection. We don't want to necessarily have those on, or I mean, you could leave them on and they'd auto turn on later for you. But you notice these are critical and high findings for just things we haven't turned on or off. And as you get into more of the details, things like subnets should not automatically assign public IP addresses. Well, we have that for a reason because we have some default subnets where we're doing that. And this is the key lesson for cloud security posture management. This is undifferentiated. These are like almost all the recommendations somebody would come up with, or a large number of recommendations somebody would come up with to keep things locked down. But it might not be what you need in your environment. Or maybe instead of using GuardDuty, you're using some third-party SIEM like Splunk or Sumo or one of those other ones that are out there. And you have another way to actually collect and find that information. This only looks very specifically. It only looks for the way Amazon is recommending how they do things. And they put a lot of things on this list that maybe don't matter to you and certainly won't matter in every circumstance. And that's a big part of working with CSPM. And it's why I waited so long to actually run this lab, because we wanted to make sure that you could understand. And as you look at these, understand what these findings are, because otherwise it's overwhelming. And when you walk in, and if you don't have a lot of cloud experience and you see the results from either Security Hub or Prowler or one of the big commercial CSPMs, actually Prowler is also a commercial CSPM, it really can be overwhelming. You're going to struggle to understand like what are the priorities, what are the real implications. Hopefully you have a better idea of that now. Now, what I'm going to do for the lab is I'm actually not going to turn everything off in my environment, but I'm going to show you how to turn things off so that you aren't collecting any additional fees for having this up and running. Like I said, there's a few little things I want to check that I couldn't do until I got this set up. So if there's a little video after this, you know that I learned some lessons. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right now. You're pretty much set with the lab, with the core. Now you've enabled cloud security posture management in your account, but then some. So you're integrating threat information, you're integrating vulnerability information. This is what the big CNAPP tools offer. We're just using it on a smaller scale using the built-in Amazon tools. And do I think they're the best? Well, you know, if you can afford the big commercial tool, you're probably going to be in better shape with one of those because they are updated more frequently and they frequently have more capabilities than what the cloud providers give you. But if you're in an environment where you can't get one of those, you're going to get great feedback and you're going to be able to use Security Hub to juice up your security, and it's going to fill that need for you. Couldn't always say that, wasn't always the best, but now it's okay. All right, so this is going to be a weird sign off because maybe I'll be talking to you at the next lab and maybe I'll be talking to you in a few minutes. All right, so let's learn how to shut this down so we're not going to be charged. Probably won't be bad if you leave this up and running for a few days, but I wouldn't leave this running for very long. First thing is we're going to shut down Security Hub itself. So let's go to Settings, General, and you just click Disable here. This will go ahead and then type in Disable, and that'll go ahead and shut this down. Oh, we have to do it via a Security Hub policy. Okay, so we'll go to Configurations, and then we have our policy here. We'll click on our policy, we'll hit Edit, and then we want to enable and we want to disable all regions. So this is what's going to go ahead and disable the Security Hub, the main Security Hub. All OUs and units, click Next and click Update. So that updated the policy, and then this will become disabled in a bit. The next thing we need to do is go into Security Hub CSPM. And we're going to disable the security standard, which is what runs those background checks. Again, we're going to have to use our configuration to do this. Then we go to policies, click on that policy, and then edit. Don't just delete it because it might still be running. We want to actually go ahead and run our disable for the entire organization. Click next, save policy, and apply. So this now disables Security Hub and Security Hub CSPM. But the last thing we need to do is go back into our management account and disable config. So, whoops, let me stay on page, make sure, confirm policy changes. So you have to click that checkbox, save policy and apply. And so that's now disabling this everywhere else. Then we have to go into our management account. So we'll go back up into CloudSLA. Administrator access, CloudFormation, and stack sets, and our config stack set. So to do this, you're going to need the OU ID for your entire root organization. Now, since we are already in the management account, this is pretty easy. So just click on the upper right-hand corner and then right-click Organization and open a new tab. So I'll have that available to us in a moment. Then click on Config, Actions, Delete Stacks from Stack Set. You can't just delete the stack set, you have to delete the stacks first. Then we go to our AWS accounts and we need to highlight this. So we want this root ID. Copy, Paste that right in the top. Add all regions. We'll do our 10 and our 9 again. This time we'll run it in parallel and click Next and click Submit. This is now deleting all the stack sets, and I'll go ahead and pause while that runs. Those deleted pretty quickly, and then we just go to Actions and delete stack set, and we don't have anything running in there. That's all cleared out. And that's it. We've now turned everything off. Config is disabled in your account. Your Security Hub, CSPM, and Security Hub are all disabled in your account, and all the billing should stop.